Jose Young's here at the MMAfighting.com here in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, speaking with MMA legend Dan Hardy. So, yesterday you and I were talking a little bit, and I think, fans, they view this as the Lineal heavyweight title, but it's not being promoted for that. We joked about the WAMA belt that is no longer in circulation after Fedor, I think, defended it once about 15 years ago. So do you like that? The fans are the ones that are really getting behind this because they understand what's at stake here?
Yeah, I think it's the only way that it can be. It would be like if we start saying, well, he's the Lineal champion and stuff, and we have been having these conversations internally and stuff, and that's certainly how we view it as well. But ultimately, that's for the fans to decide who's the heavyweight champ of the world. What we're doing, we're trying to figure out who's the best heavyweight champ in our promotion right now, and the UFC is going to be doing the same thing in November as well. So really, the conversation at the end of November is who's the best out of these two winners, and that's really where we start to have interesting conversations about who's the overall champion. But certainly, I think Ngannou carries that weight.
Yeah, and we spoke to both Francis and Renan yesterday, and Francis said it doesn't really look at it that way, doesn't want to think about it that, but Renan was the opposite. He said, if I beat Francis, I am the Lineal heavyweight champion of the world, and I can, lay claim to being the heavyweight. I'm curious, just as a former fighter, which method of thought do you like? Do you like just another fight, or do you like, I know what I'm fighting for, and I know how important this fight is?
Look, for Renan, he's beaten the guy that was the heavyweight champion of the world, very recently, right? In his mind, he's fighting the guy that vacated his belt and was never beaten, right? So even though Ngannou's come over here and he relinquished his belt, he still carries that credential. And if I'm Renan Ferreira, I'm looking at him and thinking to myself, if I beat this guy, everyone in the world's going to consider me to be the man that beat the man, right? That would make him the Lineal champion of the world because Ngannou was never beaten for the belt. So it makes sense if I'm Renan, I'm talking about that, I'm thinking about that. Everything about this fight, the narrative is I am the best in the world once I've beaten Francis Ngannou. And I would even be confident if I was him saying that with, UFC 309 coming up.
Sure.
I would be, making a point of telling all three of those heavyweights, including Aspinall, because he's obviously the backup.
I was about to ask about that, yeah.
I would, it's healthy for him to be thinking that way. And why would you not? I mean, if you're 6'8" and you can fly across the cage and knock out Ryan Bader in 40 seconds and you can beat Francis Ngannou, why would you not think you're the best heavyweight on the planet? And, Stipe's old, Jones has not proven at heavyweight.
Sure.
Tom's still on his rise, in my opinion. I still feel like Tom Aspinall and Renan Ferreira have got their peak ahead of them. So, that could be a super fight in the future.
So just real quick, is the winner of Saturday the best heavyweight in the world?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you see the fight actually playing out? Because I spoke with Francis, and the last time we saw him in an MMA fight, he had, compromised knees. It was a very wrestling-based attack, which I think caught a lot of people off guard. Now that he's healthy, are you expecting to see him, go out there guns blazing, or do you expect him to see like the well-rounded Francis fight that he even jokes like, maybe I submit him? Renan Ferreira's like, maybe I submit him. He's like, is there a world where Francis or Renan Ferreira submit them on Saturday?
I would be very, very surprised if we get a submission. I'd be very, very surprised. But, it wouldn't surprise me if we see some grappling from both parties. I very much feel like Francis he's had times in his career where he's been able to focus on one particular thing, right? He's focused on his takedowns because of his knee injury. He focused on his boxing because he moved over into a different sport. This is the time when he brings it all together, and I think comes with that maturity and composure, as well as his need to prove to everybody that he did the right thing by relinquishing his belt. There's pressure that comes with that's still on his shoulders right now. I think we're going to see a very, very mature, calm Francis Ngannou, and I don't think that's going to work out too well for Renan because he's going to be trying to get Francis to throw first so he can counter, and really it depends on who loses their composure first really in this one. I do think we'll see some grappling though.
I mean, I hope so. I told Francis yesterday, like, it's just good to see him, like, with the small gloves on. It's good to see him back in the cage again. But I know you have a lot of interviews to do, but, I spoke with Peter Murray, and I asked him to go, famously, the other side, the other promoter does, like, if you don't know, now you know type situation. So I guess same question for you. Obviously, we have AJ McKee and Paul Hughes kicking the card off. AJ's oddly the vet. He's not usually on that side of the coin. Chris Cyborg, Luis Pacheco, obviously Johnny Evelyn, and Fabian Edwards, the rematch we just saw them outside the hotel a little bit ago. I guess which one of these fights do you have circled as like, if you're a fight fan, you have to tune into this one?
I'm paying a lot of attention. We've got two undefeated guys on the undercard, Ibrahim Ibragimov and Nacho Campos. That's the fight.
That's a great fight.
That's the one that's going to steal a lot of people's attention. Like, Ibra made his debut for us on PFL Europe in Newcastle. he just ran through Josh Reed, who's a veteran of the game, and he looked incredibly strong. And he's got a mindset like he's been fighting for 30 years already, and everything is taken in his stride. I think he's a very, very special fighter. And Nacho Campos is someone I was going to sign last year, he's a wild man. He's very, very difficult to control, very difficult to predict. That is going to steal the show, that fight.
What a pro, plugging, PFL Europe and everything. And last question for me, I know you don't remember this, but the first time I ever interviewed you, I think was 2009. It was after your Mike Swick fight.
Okay.
I think it was this just shitty little blog that I had. To just go from, looking back then to now, like fighting, like we're having this big event in Saudi Arabia in a promotion that is almost rivaling the UFC. Like, did you think that the sport of MMA would progress this rapidly from like then to now?
I think I did. I think, at the time, in 2008, 2009, that's when I signed with the UFC, and it was 2009.
Yeah.
That's really where it felt like the momentum was uncontrollable. It was just going to explode. And, it really has. I mean, I even think growth has been stifled in some ways, if I'm honest. I think the sport could have grown a lot quicker, but that's a conversation for another day.
It's for a whole different interview.
But yeah, I very much expected this kind of growth, and I think we're going to see a lot more growth in the coming 10 years. Now Saudi Arabia's got involved. We saw the World Cup bid. We know how much money they're spending on that. Like, they're backing mixed martial arts as well in a big way, both amateur and professional. I think we've got a lot of money coming into the sport now that's going to really accelerate that growth. So when we stand there in 10 years' time, having this conversation again, hopefully, I don't think we'll be surprised.
Maybe there'll be a third, fourth promotion rivaling, the co-leaders. Do you remember who's in the main event of that Mike Swick fight card?
It was Randy Couture, Brandon Vera?
Sure was. Yeah, I think it was it was a numbered event on free on Spike though. I think it was. I think so.
UFC
and then GSP and UG they brought. Yeah. See, he knows.
Yeah.
He's about that. Appreciate you, Dad. Love it.
Good to see you, bro.
Dad.